issue is going to come to the fore very soon.
Yeah. I mean, well, firstly, Cindy is absolutely right that basically an Australian points system means absolutely nothing until you say what that entails. Like, that is literally just a system of ranking people. At the moment, we have a sort of employer-driven system where employers in the UK sponsor people to come here, and all we're saying, all Boris Johnson is currently saying, is that we're going to have a ranking system instead. I mean, there's an obvious problem with that, where that is predicated on some sort of imagined idea of people's employability rather than their actual employability, whether people actually in the UK will employ these people. But it's very Boris Johnson to sort of announce this policy and not give us any of the detail, because it means that we can't have a detailed discussion of the potential issues with it.
Well, they will be bringing forward the paper,
yeah,
but
it's coming
fairly shortly.
It's coming next week. I think on a wider point, I mean, there are obvious problems with the social care system and so on, but it is very depressing to have a conversation where we have to talk about higher quality people. As Ian says, you know, it's just a bit sad to have to rank people in this way. I mean, I think we can look at what skills certain sectors need and so on, but this was why the 30k idea was so horrible, because we're sort of attributing people's worth based on their earnings. You know, loads of people, you know, my mum probably never earned 30k. I think it's just horrible to grade people in that way, and that's what we kind of need to move past and think more about specific sectors and where we need the talent to go.
All right, well, let's talk about the withdrawal agreement bill. It's faced a number of defeats in the Lords. Those will most likely be overturned in the Commons. But, Kirsty, as you are here, the three devolved governments have voted against backing Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. To what end?
Well, the Sewell Convention says that the UK government shouldn't legislate without the consent of the devolved administrations, and for all three devolved administrations to unite on this and to suggest that this is not working for us. And in fact, in Scotland, in the vote in Scotland, only the Conservative Party voted to allow it to go through. Everybody else voted for it to be rejected. And I think that, you know, we are just seeing the major issue that there is with democracy in the UK. We have a situation where, despite the fact that we got a higher percentage of the vote than the Conservatives got in England, they're able to push through their Brexit bill, but we're not able to have, or the Conservative Prime Minister is saying that we shouldn't have the right to choose our own future. And, you know, we're making very clear that we should have that right.
Right. I mean, how worrying is this in terms of the future of the Union, the bad blood and relations between the Conservative government and the devolved administrations, particularly in Scotland?
Well, the government's made it clear they want to consult, but the truth is, at the end of it all...
consult and then ignore?
Yeah, but the United Kingdom voted as a United Kingdom on whether you stay or you leave. You can have all your views about whether you don't want to go or you want to go. The reality is the UK voted on this, and if we take the overall numbers, 1.5 million people in Scotland actually voted to leave, and the whole of the UK as a whole voted to leave. Now, you know, we are a United Kingdom in this. It wasn't done on a regional basis. It wasn't done in terms of separate devolved administration. So the answer is, I think the government will talk, obviously, clearly to the devolved administrations, but at the end of it all, they were elected on a platform to deliver Brexit, and that means we are leaving, and we're leaving in the date lines as set.
And we were elected on a platform to allow Scotland the right to choose our own future. And for the UK government, for Boris Johnson to turn around and say that that is not the future that he's going to allow, it's an untenable position that cannot continue.
This is one of my biggest fears about the consequences of Labour's catastrophic election defeat, is the threat to our United Kingdom.
Labour, of course, had lost pretty well all their support in Scotland for many years.
And one of the things I want to see from any future Labour leader is an absolute commitment to fight for the future of the United Kingdom. Not just because I believe we are better when we work together in groups of countries, that we are stronger, but because Labour will never get back into power unless we win back those seats in Scotland. And the truth is, the person who is the biggest threat to the future of the United Kingdom is actually Boris Johnson of the Conservative and Unionist Party, because of the problems we're seeing over Brexit, because his proposal puts a border down the Irish Sea, and I want to see the Labour Party fighting with all its might to protect that in future, and that's one of the reasons why I'm also backing Ian Murray to be Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, because I think he will fight tooth and nail for it.
Labour's only MP in
Yes.
Scotland. Ian, your response? Boris Johnson is the biggest problem, impediment, according to Liz.
No, actually, I think the biggest threat to the Union has historically grown through the European European Union, and I think the whole debate changes the moment we leave. And it changes because one of the great arguments that the Scottish Nationalists have mounted consistently is that they could leave the UK, but still being in the EU would have just exactly the same access under the EU as they would have done had they been in the United Kingdom. The moment we leave, that argument changes completely. And therefore, the debate around the Union, I think, strengthens, because the answer is the United Kingdom is going to be better off together as we leave than it will be in any way broken up. And I agree arguing for the Union, because the Union brings enormous benefits to Scotland as much as it does to England and Wales. And I would therefore argue that the government was elected to deliver this. The Labour Party's problem was they didn't know what they wanted. So the answer is now we were elected to deliver Brexit.
The UK and the EU are two very different things. I mean, with the EU, the UK was allowed to have a referendum. It didn't have to ask permission from the EU to have that referendum, but Scotland's been told that we cannot have that permission because, you know, we don't have the right to make that decision on our own, apparently, which seems to me a very clear difference between the two unions.
You had a referendum.
We had a referendum.
It was a once-in-a-generation referendum.
We had
you told
a
us all.
referendum.
You said, that's it, decision taken. In fact, your leader at the time
And
said,
Boris
it's
Johnson
over.
said he would die in a ditch.
It's over. You said it was over.
You know,
I don't understand this.
Well, let her respond.
This was a turn of phrase that was used. Now, the reality is that we won a mandate in 2016.
Is that all it was, Kirsty, a turn of phrase?
It was a turn of phrase. It was a warning to people. It was a suggestion to people, look, you might lose your opportunity. You might end up in a situation where we have terrible things happen as a result. And, you know, we have got another Conservative government that we overwhelmingly did not vote for. We have got a situation where we're being dragged out of the EU against our will, and all of this has happened. You know, and now we should have a right to choose because the goalposts have shifted significantly.
Right, there's gridlock on this, but I mean, a turn of phrase. In the end, these pledges are made. Die in a ditch was another one. Is that what it's reduced to?
Well, I think in Kirsty's defence, you know, the circumstances have materially changed for Scotland. People voted to remain in the UK when they thought they'd be staying in the European Union, and so things have changed. And I think there is, you know, quite a strong case for having a second Indie ref, basically. It is funny how they. Basically, Ian's argument and Kirsty's, the argument about the UK and the argument about being in the EU are so similar, but the people are on different teams for them, you know. I mean, basically, you have a better together argument when it comes to the UK, but not when it comes to the EU, and vice versa. I think that if we do have another second independence referendum, it would be really interesting to see how Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP counter all those difficult arguments, you know, around a hard border, all these arguments that we've had around Brexit. How do they relate when we talk about the UK breaking up?
Cindy, we're hearing stories, just briefly, that there is going to be some sort of initiative, some sort of campaign to try and build bridges between the Conservative government and Scotland. You know, what's that going to look like?
Boris Johnson would build a bridge between Scotland and England if he could. I'm afraid
he's keen on
and
bridges.
it would never materialise if his past track record is anything to go by. But yes, the government is going to. I'm hearing that they're going to go on a PR drive. You know, to sort of better together, but maybe with different words, union PR drive over the summer to talk about all the benefits that Scotland can gain from staying in the EU. I would just, in the UK, Freudian slip. I would just say as well, you know, the SNP, you know, the party itself has its own problems. You know, we had the Alex Salmond trial this year. Also, you know, there are tensions, but Kirsty, you'd know more about this than I would, between the London SNP members and the Scottish ones, who some of them feel like the Scottish, Nicola Sturgeon downwards, haven't done enough leadership on this issue of Indie Ref 2. You know, it was obvious that the Conservative government was going to say no to an Indie Ref 2. So what has been the SNP response other than PMQs? I'm assuming we will see repeated questions on the same question.
All right, we're going